How we doing, folks? Your host Moose here on the Pitt Panthers Football Network as we welcome you back to the Season 6 off-season as we get into the team moves. Of course, we just went over our recruiting class that we brought in. You can see the new recruits and where they fit into the lineup this year. And we went through and made our position changes. And at this screen, you can kind of see we didn't make a lot of moves on the offensive side of the ball, at least not until we got to the offensive line, but at least lets you have an opportunity to see where the freshmen fit into the team. Of course, keep in mind that this video was recorded, it had to be recorded before I was able to do the editing of the players, and so that's why the names are their names from when we recruited them as opposed to what their names are now on the roster. But you can see a lot of good talent. A few guys will see the red shirts in this video as well towards the end, so you'll see who's going to play a part this season and who likely won't. We did make some moves though. Antonio Ryan stays at left tackle. We moved Lonnie Jackson over from right tackle to left tackle, where he'll back up or be the third string left tackle in that regard. Joel Sykes, our true freshman left guard, comes in, and he's going to be the #1 left guard by rating, but he's not going to start at left guard. We'll actually have our backup center, Luke Davis, starting there. We moved Charles Rhodes over from left guard to right guard, where he can be groomed behind Ryan Henry to hopefully be the starter then coming into his senior year next year. And of course, we have Robert Brown there as well, who's going to be a senior this year. Michael Collins will still start right tackle. We moved Daniel Jenkins. He was a right guard. We moved him over to right tackle because we were lacking some depth there. He's a big body, 6'6", 290. I think he's going to fit right in there at right tackle, and he should be able to start in his senior season after Collins starts this coming season at the right tackle position. So we'll have 3 returning starters more than likely, and then 2 new starters over at left tackle and left guard. On the defensive side of the football, we moved some guys around. We have Mac McAlevey and Ronnie Baker at one end. We got Jaylen Hills and Marcus Lanier over at left end. So we'll rotate them around. I mean, Ronnie Baker is the only true starter of those 4. The other 3 are definitely going to all get a chance to play. This was a big move we made. Malachi Bordeaux moving from right end over to defensive tackle. Of course, Darren Toth graduated, so we're pretty thin in terms of quality defensive tackles, and I figured out that if I switch Malachi Bordeaux from defensive end to defensive tackle, his rating actually goes up. His awareness obviously gets tanked a bit down to 40, but his overall rating goes up. He's already a big body. He's 270 plus pounds, so he can be an undersized defensive tackle who can be a really good pass rusher for us, while Ryan Jacobs is going to be a starting defensive tackle. He's 315 pounds or whatever. Ryan Lumpkin's 320 pounds. So basically we'll have somebody pair with Bordeaux who's 300 plus pounds, and then Bordeaux can be alongside them as a 280 pound guy. He's still big enough. He's like an Aaron Donald in that regard. Aaron Donald's only 6'1", 280 or 285, whatever he might be, and he's one of the best defensive tackles in football. So I think it's actually going to help Bordeaux out and make him very, very talented. We then had to make some moves here, and where we really changed things around was looking at the offensive, the outside linebacker, middle linebacker, etc. positions, because when you look there at our secondary, you can see we got a lot of talented secondary players, and we're very, very thin at the outside linebacker position. So what we ended up considering was the fact that, hey, some of these guys could potentially make an impact for us in a different role. Namely, Quell Hampshire, who was kind of stuck behind Jacob Lachlan at the free safety position. Very, very talented player, but he's right behind him, and so he's going to end up not starting there. He's our third safety, and so we thought, how can this guy continue to make an impact for us in a different role? And so how we did that was we moved him to outside linebacker. Quell Hampshire will be our starting left outside linebacker going into next season, and I think it's going to be great because he's very fast. I think it's going to make him a very good pursuit guy. He's also good in coverage, so he's the kind of guy we can leave in a nickel package or even potentially in a dime package, and that he'll be able to cover tight ends. He'll be able to cover running backs and things like that because he still has good man coverage ratings. He still has good tackling, so he can play in that linebacker position. His pursuit's good. His hit power is solid. His moves aren't great, but his block shedding is good. Look at his 88 pursuit. This guy's going to be a ball hawk chasing the football around, making tackles, and he's got good coverage sets. I mean, obviously you can see his zone coverage, his man coverage are better than what you typically expect in a linebacker, and so that should make him a very solid player. He didn't have great coverage ratings, which hurt him in the secondary, but at linebacker, he's definitely above average in that regard. That allowed us to move Calvin Carlson back to middle linebacker. When we originally recruited him a couple of seasons ago as a JUCO, he came in as a sophomore. He was a middle linebacker, but we were thin at the outside linebacker position, so I moved him to left outside linebacker. Now that we have Hampshire going to play outside linebacker, Carlson can move back to the middle linebacker position where he can link up with Fillmore. That gives us just a little bit more depth at that position. Carlson's a little bit better, and so that's just going to make us that much stronger, being able to have, you know, your best defensive players fill out your lineup. And so I really like the idea of that. Darion Mitchell, of course, will be at the right outside linebacker position, where he should be starting this year after performing as a reserve his first years. He came in as a 4-star. He has not had much progression for us, so we'll see how things shake out for him. We'll have to see we'll show you what the progression did for him in this offseason, as we haven't hit that just yet. Cornerback, we haven't made any changes. Lachlan will have TC Colvin as his kind of direct backup and the guy who's going to be expected to start next season at free safety, but Colvin probably won't get any game time this year. We'll think about redshirting him. I'm worried about guys like that transferring potentially, especially when he's going to be a starter next year. I don't want him to transfer away, but I'd love for him to be a redshirt freshman as opposed to a true sophomore. We'll have to see, though, because I don't want to have to worry about the possibility of him leaving just because of that. With Matt Emery now is kind of going to be our third safety, because you can see Kenton Hill is third and strong safety on talent, but he's going to redshirt more than likely this season. And then, of course, we have our kicker, punter, and so on and so forth. And after moving those guys around, then we did have our off-season training where we saw their progression. And John Cooper is our #1 player by overall this season. You can see we have a bunch of really talented players, a good number of guys above 90. And we got some good progression in that regard. AC Reese up to 91, which is fantastic to see. Very, very good quarterback. He's got a very good arm. I think even with the freshman coming in, CJ Kirk, AC Reese has got a pretty good stranglehold on the starting position, at least to start off with, because he's got better throw power, much better accuracy, which is a real key there, because we want to limit the turnovers and mistakes. Even if we're not going to rely on Reese to be, you know, superhuman out there, we don't want him to make too many mistakes. CJ London got a huge boost in the offseason, +6 up to 93 overall, which levels him up with Todd Sibley, both of them at 93 overall going into their senior years. But then, of course, we do have the true freshman Davion Reynolds as well. Even our lower level halfbacks, Colin Wells, Daenerys Carter, Godfrey, all got pretty good bumps in the offseason, none of them really slacking off. So they may be in line, at least for you know, a couple of carries here and there as the season goes on. Wide receiver, Jay Key's got a +5 in the offseason. His awareness, for whatever reason, seems like it keeps going down. I know I thought I turned it up back to like 75, where it would have been when he was a younger player. So we'll probably give that another bump, which will push him up to 87 overall, just because that's where it's supposed to be. I don't know how it got back down to like 63 or whatever it was when, you know, we had moved it back up when we switched his position back to receiver to where it should have been. But good off seasons otherwise. Nobody really was a superstar. Shane Mitchell only +4 again. This guy just keeps slacking. His speed didn't even go up from 83. So he's definitely a pure possession receiver. On Yango's a guy I'm really excited about. +5 in the offseason, 96 speed now, and he's 6'3". I think he could be a very good deep threat for us and develop into that as the season goes on. Spectacular catch, a guy I want to watch out for. Benjamin Ogden could be in for a big year. 99 spectacular catch rating. 89 catching, 96 catch in traffic. I think this guy is going to make some really stellar, and he's 99 route running. How has he not been and I think he has 94 speed as well, 87 jumping. The measurables on this guy are incredible. We need to see what he can do in terms of having a big year this year. I think he could be a breakout player for us. On the tight end side of the football, Antonio Greer, good solid progression. Balmer, Cannon all went up at a nice rate. We have good depth at the tight end position, even though we don't have any real superstars there. Antonio Ryan gets a +4 up to an 82 for his senior season. Wendell Matthews, excited for him. He should be mid-80s for when he becomes a starter as a junior. John Cooper up to 97. Luke Davis, our backup center, up to 91. He's just too good to keep off the field. That's why, like I said, he's going to be starting likely at our left guard position because he's 90 plus overall. I think even at left guard when he switches position, he's 88, 87, something of that nature. He's very, very good. Ryan Henry up to a 90. Charles Rhodes, 83. So some good talent that we have there at right guard. And then Daniel Jenkins at right tackle, because we moved him over. Of course, he's going to be behind Michael Collins. He goes up to 78, which means when he has to start in his senior season next year, probably be along the lines of an 82, 83, somewhere in there. So will be a solid contributor for us at that point. So we get some good growth on the offensive side of the football. At defensive end, Jaylen Hills, of course, going to be a redshirt sophomore, gets a huge bump, 81 overall, +5, and he repays the fact that I put him at that left end position likely as the starter, because Mac McAlevey, the true sophomore, only gets a +4 up to 80 overall, and so Hills wins the overall battle there and helps him out. Ronnie Baker up to 93. I think he has like the second or third highest rating on the team. Even better rating than Sean Wolfgang had. It remains to be seen though if Baker can put up similar numbers to what Wolfgang did at defensive end. Bordeaux gets huge growth up to 91 overall as just a junior, which means he could be 96, 97 overall if he stays for his senior year. Jacobs, 81 overall, he gets a +6 in the offseason, so all of a sudden, just like that, we're really strong at defensive tackle. Quell Hampshire, good solid growth up to 84 overall, so, I mean, that's very good for a starting outside linebacker. It's not anything that's a world beater, but compared to what we were going to be at with, you know, had we left him at safety, I think that's a huge roster move for us to be able to utilize the talents that Quell Hampshire does have. Look at his tackling, 82, hit powers and 83, hit powers and 82, pursuits up to 94. This guy's gonna be all around the football for us this season. I'm really excited to see what he can do. I think it's going to be pretty impressive, and I think it's going to be a really savvy roster move that we pulled off. Calvin Carlson up to 85. Notice his awareness is low. It's at 52. He was originally a middle linebacker, so I'm going to bump his awareness back up just a little bit to reflect the fact that he got kind of screwed over in that when you change their position from middle linebacker to outside linebacker, their awareness drops because they're going to a new position they're not familiar with. Well, then when you put him back to middle linebacker, it doesn't remember, hey, he used to be a middle linebacker, so it drops his awareness again. So he would really be a guy that's 70, 80 awareness. I don't know if I'll push up that high, but we'll give him a little bit more of a boost to reflect the fact he's still at that position. Darion Mitchell, only +4 growth, so another offseason where he only got a plus, I think he had a +3 the year before, so he's +3 and +4 in 2 off seasons. His awareness is only a 49, and he's a junior, which means even through 2 growth cycles, he's only up to 49 awareness. He must have come in with like a 40. So that's really disappointing. I hope that he can improve and show some growth this season going into his junior year when he finally gets to start. Corner, we're just really, really talented. We don't have any superstars, of course, because everybody's young. But look at these sophomores, 84, 82, 82, etc. Those are guys that are going to be 90 overall by the time they hit their senior year and will be some of the best corners in the nation if they're not on their way there already. Sutton, we're going to hold out of the lineup this season, so even though he shows as an 81, he's not going to feature in our team this year because he's returning, of course, remember, from that vertebrae injury. So he's basically going to be a medical redshirt, which means Brian Youngling, the redshirt freshman, is going to get an opportunity to start contributing this year. He's got very good man coverage ratings, and he is going to be a slot nickel type corner for us this season. Jacob Lachlan, good growth, 91 overall, +5, great awareness, he's quick, can get around the football. Nobody can get around the football, though, like Avery Heller, up to +5, 89 overall. He led the team in tackles last season. I'd expect him to do the same likely this year. And then we got great depth. Matt Emery, the junior, he may even start at a safety position next year, but he's great to have a third safety at 82 overall. And Eric Fox, good growth, +6 up to 93 as he comes in for his senior year. So our team is looking very, very good. We had some good offseason growth. Nobody in particular was too stagnant. We didn't have any +3s. We had a couple of those last year. Didn't have any +3s, which is good to see. So I'm excited to use some of these guys. We did have to cut a few players, but it was all pretty much just walk-ons that got cut because the game signed them for us, and so we didn't need them. I think we had 3 walk-ons we had to cut that the game signed for us, and then we had to cut 1 player that's been on the team. He's already earned his degree. He's been on the team for 4 years, but for his 5th year, he's technically going to be on the team, we'll say, but he would have never contributed, and so we just cut him from the roster because we didn't need him. So Jeremiah Hill, who was a walk-on we didn't want, we cut. There was another defensive end here, Eric Matthews, another defensive end that, you know, wasn't going to play. We didn't sign him, so we don't keep him around. We then got rid of a middle linebacker that we'll come back to here in a second because we had to cut a corner. Drew Peterson, that again we didn't sign, walk on, so he gets cut from the team. And then finally, middle linebacker Osi Obasahan ends up getting cut. He's a guy that I think he's got a couple of tackles maybe in his career, but wasn't going to feature. We moved him over to middle linebacker just so we had enough bodies there. But then once we realized we weren't going to need him, we decided to cut him from the roster because he just didn't have the overall to keep up. So he was going to be our final cut to get us down to 70 overall. Had to keep Bandino Mo because he's our long snapper. And so that was how we had to get down to 70 players here in the off season. So you finish things up here with the red shirts. We decided to redshirt quarterback Austin Penny. We don't redshirt CJ Kirk. He's going to be our backup quarterback. I considered redshirting Colin Wells to give him another year of eligibility, but we're not going to do that just because we have so many halfbacks. It wouldn't really be worth it. We do redshirt both of our freshman receivers, Sino Rogers and Nash Jackson. I'm worried one of them might transfer, but they're just not going to fit into the team. We also redshirt tight end Christian Klump. Just because we have 3 tight ends above him already. He'll compete for the starting job next season. We don't redshirt Lanier at left end. He's going to play this season. We do redshirt Dominic Christian at outside linebacker, but not Talik Bridges, the JUCO signing. He's going to play this year. Aubrey St. Solomon's going to get redshirted because he's way down the depth chart at middle linebacker. He'll have an opportunity potentially to play next season. Corner, I do redshirt Tyquan Sutton. Because, again, he's recovering from that injury, so it'll be a medical redshirt season. And then I decided to redshirt both T.C. Colvin and Kenton Hill, but we'll have to see if any of them play this season just by virtue of injuries or the fact that I don't want to lose them to a potential transfer request. So we'll see how that goes. On the recruiting side, so we will show you here as we set up the recruiting board to finish out our off-season topics. You can see that our big needs are on the defensive side of the football. Defensive end, we're going to be losing 1 player, so we'll only have 3 rostered defensive ends. We've got to get some signings there. Middle linebacker, we are only going to have 1 rostered middle linebacker going into next season. And free safety, we'll only have 1 rostered free safety, so we're going to need to make those signings. We also are going to need a punter, but that's a separate issue. But as far as the main skill positions or 11 on the field positions, middle linebacker, defensive end, free safety, definitely going to need some players there. Now you can see at my board, punter was one of the first positions I went after because you want to get that out of the way for sure. Now we do have a couple of luxury players on there, guys that we maybe won't need, but we're not really sure. So we kind of hit around the board. Now of course you'll see some of the guys will show that they've been scouted to 50% or whatever it might be. Remember, our house rules are we can only scout guys that are 3-star or below that are in a pipeline state. So PA, Ohio, Florida, Maryland, New Jersey, those kind of states are the ones that we could scout the guys that are 3 stars or below. So I do have 1 really bad tight end you'll notice on there, Joe Weber. He's a potential long snapper recruit, so that's who we're going to try and get for long snapper. Otherwise, we got a bunch of defensive ends, a ton of middle linebackers that we're looking at, a bunch of safeties, and then we're kind of filling in positions that we know we're going to be graduating guys. We have a lot of seniors on this roster. If you saw there on the team needs, we have 19 seniors on the roster, which means we are going to have a ton of room to make signings because 19 seniors, we can pretty much sign a class of 20 because Sutton may or may not be back next season. We're pretty much going to flip a coin to determine that. So we've got 19 guys. We may even have 1 or 2 guys leave for the draft. So we're probably going to look for a recruiting class of around 20 players. We have 35 guys on our board. That means we can sign more than half of them. So we are going to go wild trying to sign some of these guys, and because a few of them are luxuries. I have 3 kickers on the board there. I'm only going to sign 1 of them, which means, you know, really we can sign pretty much almost everyone that's on our board. I also, just for the sake of you guys looking at, you can see who we have on our team in terms of states they're from and things like that, where are our pipelines and the areas that most of our team comes from, just for some background, especially because everybody on the team right now I've recruited, which means where they're from matches up with players that I've been recruiting. It's not anything weird or anything like that. And then you can see, finally, to finish things up, the areas of the nation where the recruits that we're currently looking at that are on our recruiting board are from. And so it's pretty exciting to see kind of the distribution of that. I love the little statistical stuff like that as you look through the Dynasty. So, as always, guys, thank you so much for watching. It's a ton of fun stuff to go into. I love the off-season. It's great to go through, but I'm really excited to get the season underway, get the recruiting battles going, get the actual in-game battles going. It's going to be a lot of fun. So one more episode coming up here. It's going to be our season preview and week 1 preview episode, and then we'll finally start getting close to some game action. So as always, guys, thank you so much for watching. Hail to Pitt. We'll see you soon. Take care. Bye-bye.